Happy Saturday morning. Welcome in. It is the Saturday Show, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. I'm Christian Esparza. Alex Napoles with me, as always. And we have an eventful Saturday for you. Utah is set to kick off against number 18, Colorado, any second now. They're just showing the pregame kind of hype videos before the game as we await kickoff. We'll see if Utah can beat Coach Prime and the Buffs. Colorado has lost 6 straight games to Utah. No, 7 straight. They haven't won since 2016. Meanwhile, the Utes are sliding this year. They've lost 5 in a row, trying to avoid that disastrous 6th loss in a row that the Utes have not suffered since the mid-'80s.
It's been a while.
It has been a while, Alex. How are you, man?
Doing good. It's been a fun week, and now I'm excited to be back here and joining you on Saturday, man.
It's been a crazy week, that's for sure.
It has.
It has been a crazy week.
Hey, you know what, man? We're here. We keep going. We keep doing things, and we keep enjoying our Saturdays.
And you know what? I like the layout that we have today. I mean, we've got Utah at Colorado kicking off here at 10. We've got Utah State at home versus Hawaii. That's a 1 p.m. kickoff. And then tonight, night game, BYU hosting Kansas.
You got a busy day ahead of you, man.
I do. It happens. It's with the job. I'm not worried. We push through. We have fun. I can't complain about watching sports all day.
There you go.
But
that's a good way to look at it.
Man, let's get into some things because, well, okay, first we got to start the show how we always do. Do you have a highlight of your week?
Highlight of my week? Oh, man. So my roommate went out of town. He was out for a little bit, came back. We had like a nice steak dinner. So that's probably the highlight of my week. Just hanging out, having steaks.
I love steak.
Just hanging out.
Did you cook it or to go somewhere?
No, his wife made it.
Oh, is she a good cook?
She's a good cook.
Put her on blast.
She's a good cook. No, she's good. She's good. I have to say that she's good because if not, then she won't make it.
She won't make you any more food. Oh, that's great, man. I love it. Let's see. Highlight of my week. I mean, I went over to some family's house last night and we watched the boxing. Mike Tyson and Jake Paul. My family is really big into boxing.
Okay.
My dad and his brother and all his cousins, they all boxed all growing up. So boxing has been a really popular sport in my household for as long as I can remember. We've always been into boxing. So, of course, they're huge Mike Tyson fans. Unfortunately, they didn't get what they wanted last night.
I'll save my thoughts for on that
don't you worry. We've got that in technical fouls coming up. We'll talk more about the fight, but I do love that there were so many eyeballs on this fight last night. I'll say that just because as a boxing fan, I like it when the sport has a lot of attention.
Sure.
And it's unfortunate that right now the attention is going towards Jake Paul when there's so many other fighters. But I mean, there was the undercard fight before it, the 2 women fighters.
Yes.
Incredible fight. And I mean, social media was just exploding with how good of a fight, how good of a match that was. And it was really incredible. So I hope that boxing continues to grow. But yeah, we'll talk more about this specific fight coming up in technical fouls. That'll be around 10:50. But again, Alex, we are awaiting kickoff. Utah at number 18. Colorado, and this game has some drama.
Interesting choice for big noon kickoff to firstly pick Utah, Colorado.
Okay.
I think that's interesting.
Why is that?
Just because with the way Utah has performed and the way Utah has been this year, it just doesn't seem like this game would generate that much hype.
Right.
Enough hype for a big noon kickoff to be there.
Yeah, well, you're right. It is hard. Utah has completely fallen short of expectations this year. They've lost 5 games in a row, including last week's rivalry week loss to BYU, and we'll talk a little bit about that game. But at the end of the day, it is, I mean, Colorado, on the other hand, they're contending for the Big 12 title. And maybe the conference schedulers or Fox, I guess, is the one who picks this game for the big noon kickoff. Maybe they see this as a potential trap game for Colorado.
Could be.
But you're right. There are a lot of interesting Big 12 games today in general that they could have went with, but they chose to go with this one. Utah has beat Colorado 6 straight times. I made this mistake twice. 7 straight times going back to 2016. I keep getting those numbers mixed up. So, yeah, this has been kind of a one-sided matchup for these two teams that have played a lot over the last few years. We'll see what it looks like today, though. Colorado at home, welcoming Utah, who has quarterback questions.
Quarterback drama.
Go figure, Alex.
Utah and quarterback drama. Life, or what's the saying? How does the saying go? Death, taxes, and Utah quarterback drama.
Something like that. In case you missed it, Brandon Rose, who started and played all game last week against BYU, turns out he's out for the season. Tore a ligament in his foot that severely limited him in his production in the second half versus BYU. So that leaves, first of all, that's the 3rd season-ending injury to a quarterback on Utah's roster this year. Cam Rising, Sam Heward, and Brandon Rose all done for the season. That leaves the Utes with only 2 active quarterbacks on the roster, Isaac Wilson and Luke Batari.
What is happening?
I have never seen anything like this.
What is happening? The fact that you're on number 5 at this point for Utah, right? There was questions, right, whether Isaac Wilson was going to play tonight or not, or today or not. And if, we're still waiting to see who trots out here on the first drive. There's Coach Prime walking the team out here on the TV. But we're still waiting to see who's gonna take the reins. If it is Luke Batari, you're on 5th string, man.
Yeah. So Steve Bartle joined Jake and Ben yesterday, and he kind of broke some news that Isaac Wilson was reportedly sick, and that there was a chance that Luke Batari could make the start for the Utes this morning. And then, of course, social media was kind of running rampant with it, going crazy. The rumor that I saw on social media was mono, and Steve Bartle came out and tweeted this morning. This is Bartle's official tweet. Isaac Wilson was sick, and the concern was that it was mono because there is an NCAA rule that prohibits players from competing with mono. However, Isaac Wilson tested negative yesterday morning. From there, it's been entirely about how he feels, and he looks ready to go. And it's also worth mentioning Steve Bartle has tweeted a video of Isaac Wilson leading some linemen and running backs onto the field. He's also tweeted some updates. Steve is there in Boulder, by the way, with this team. He's also tweeted out and said that Isaac Wilson looks to be warming up with the team. And we'll see. We still don't know for sure who's going to take the first snaps, but it is a positive sign for Wilson that he's out there warming up, at least.
Yes, absolutely. Good thing he's out there. And I think as awesome as it would be to see Ferrari Batari trotting out there for the memes, I think it's important for Isaac to be ready to go for this game.
I wouldn't blame him if he didn't want to play for the Utes again after everything that's happened to him.
Right.
But on the other hand, I mean, this is a great opportunity for him to kind of bounce back.
Absolutely.
Basically taking a week off last week and then plus the bye, that's 2 weeks off that he's had to kind of get right. I'd say get healthy, but he's apparently sick, so I don't know. But physically get healthy.
Sure.
So this could be a good opportunity for Isaac Wilson to just establish some more confidence over the past couple weeks and hopefully get some more leadership in that room as far as, having the team rally behind him and stuff. And we'll see.
I said last week, at what point does this playtime is more of a detriment to Wilson than actually learning and developing? But at this point, I think with everything that's happened this season for Utah, with how the season has gone for Utah, I think it's a little bit more. I don't want to necessarily say tank, but it's more just getting ready for next year, man. I don't know if this team right now has the ability to make that bowl game.
It's a big question, especially considering how they've looked in their past 5 games. I mean, they have really, really struggled to do anything on offense. Literally anything. And last week, in the first half against BYU, that was the best that they had looked in a long time this season. But then, of course, Brandon Rose gets injured, And he still played the second half, but he was clearly limited, and he did not look the same in that second half in the third and fourth quarter against the Cougars. And the Utes did not score any points after halftime. So, again, this offense just goes back to not being able to produce. And Brandon Rose was the best quarterback play that we've seen from this program since, Isaac Wilson looked good against Utah State. So maybe since then, week 3?
Probably. That sounds about right. Because honestly, give him credit for that Oklahoma State win.
Yeah.
We got to give him credit. Going down to Stillwater in that environment. And at that point of the season, right, we didn't know that Oklahoma State was going to fall off the way that they did. And we didn't know that Utah was going to fall off the way that they did. So give him credit because that was a huge and a good win. But since even then in that Oklahoma State win, Isaac Wilson didn't look the best.
No,
didn't look.
He had some turnovers and missed throws, and
he looked like a true freshman.
All right, Utah won the coin toss. They are deferring to the second half, so we will not know, at least for a little bit, until who is starting quarterback for the Utes. Meanwhile, Shedeur Sanders and Travis Hunter are going to start with the ball for this game. Of course, we are going to keep you updated throughout this game. Let's talk about this one, though, the game in particular. Last year, Luke Batari and the Utes beat Colorado 23-17. That game was here in Salt Lake City. But, Alex, how are you feeling about this one as far as this matchup in particular?
This year, I think it's going to be a lot more difficult. And, look at that.
First play of the game, intercepted by the
Barton
Utes. There we go.
Up with an INT on the first play. Let's go, Lander.
That's crazy.
That's good. That's a good start.
Does that change your analysis of what you were about to say?
Look, okay, but this now, take it back to the Arizona State game. Utah had a couple of opportunities on short fields, right, as we're seeing right now, where they couldn't capitalize.
Okay.
So now it's incredibly important and incredibly vital to capitalize on this turnover. You're set up, at the 25? A little bit before the 25? Right. You got to capitalize. You have to take this opportunity. You're in prime scoring position. You got to punch it into the end zone. And it looks like that is Isaac Wilson.
Isaac Wilson under center to start the game for the Utes. I can't see where they're at yard-wise, but you're right, Alex. You get the short field here. Your defense does literally the best thing that they can do, and starts off the game by creating a turnover, giving the offense a short field. Let's see if Isaac Wilson can capitalize on this and give these guys the momentum that they need. Start off strong with a touchdown here, not just a field goal. And that's the big thing, is they need 7s.
Yes.
You're not going to win this game with 3s. Colorado has one of the most explosive offenses in the Big 12, in the country, to be honest. And they can hurt you through the air.
If Utah can come here, capitalize, kind of give a little bit of a punch in the gut to Colorado here early, not only do you obviously grow confidence for this whole entire offense, but you grow confidence for Isaac Wilson. So I think it's going to be super important here for Utah to capitalize on this opportunity. But more so defensively, you have to keep, obviously, all eyes on Travis Hunter. You have to keep all eyes on Sanders, because this is a really good offense. And if you can minimize the damage that this offense can do, Utah has a shot.
Travis Hunter, obviously, in the Heisman race, whether you have him first, second, or third, is up for debate, but there's no doubt that he is one of the favorites to win that prestigious award. Of course, entering the final stretch of this season, he's going to be doing everything that he can to solidify himself as the front runner. Over 800 yards receiving on offense, and then defensively, he's one of the best corners in the country. So he is truly a special, special player, and that's going to be key for Utah, is kind of limiting what Travis Hunter specifically can do on the offensive side of the ball. Defensively, I'm not too worried about that, just because that's not Utah's style to air it out. I mean, they don't air it out to their receivers.
Right.
They just don't. So to be honest with you, Alex, I'm not worried about Travis Hunter's ability to impact this game as a corner. But as a receiver, he's dangerous. And the other problem is that Colorado has 3 other receivers that can do damage as well. They have 3 guys over 400 yards, plus Travis Hunter with over 800 yards receiving on the season.
Yes. Alex Curie on JJ and Alex made a really good point earlier this week where he mentioned that in a lot of, yes, Travis Hunter does a really good job of impacting the game. However, a lot of times he's a decoy and they air it out to the other receivers who, again, are super talented. And so that's part of what makes this Colorado offense so dangerous and so explosive is the fact that all eyes are going to be on Travis Hunter. But the second you have an opportunity to shut down Travis Hunter, the other receivers are going to step up and make plays. And so you can't give Travis Hunter space, because if you give him space, he's going to capitalize. But
Right.
you also have to focus in on the other guys, because there's just probably not just as good, but they still have the ability to make a huge impact on this offense.
Yeah. Utah shooting themselves in the foot on
Yes.
this first drive.
Yes.
And that's concerning.
Back-to-back
Again, we
penalties.
talked about gifting the defense, gifting the offense with dang near perfect field position. Penalty on the offense, and then did they get a timeout before the other penalty was called?
I saw the flags come out before it went to break, but I'm not sure. With no audio, I'm not sure what the call was.
Either way, not a good way to start off this drive for the Utes. And we were just talking about how important it is to score a touchdown on this first drive. I don't want a field goal. I don't. You're going to lose this game if you're kicking field goals.
I don't think they
every
want
drive.
a field goal.
I don't think they want a field goal either, but you have no chance at winning against this Colorado team if you resort to kicking field goals.
Right. It's how difficult is it? I want to know from a Lander Barton perspective or a Karenni Reed perspective, or really anyone on that defense, is how difficult is it to be playing lights out for most of the season, and in a lot of cases set up your offense with short fields and in good position to make something happen, right? The Arizona State game comes to mind. The TCU game comes to mind. Now here we have an early opportunity to see that, but your offense can't capitalize. How is it demoralizing to a defense? Does it become detrimental to a defense when your offense can't capitalize on what you give them?
It's got to be so frustrating. It's no doubt. I mean, if I was on that defense, I'd be furious. I'd be sick of it. But I mean, I'm not on that defense, right? It looks like so far throughout this 5-game losing streak, these players are holding together. They're sticking together, and the defense continues to show out and perform. And maybe there's a saving grace that there's so many seniors on this defense. And to be honest with you, Alex, they're probably wanting to improve their draft stock, especially with Utah's record and losing a lot of national eyes. There are a lot of defenders that are probably desperate to do everything that they can to get drafted as high as possible. A little bit of a tush push there for the Utes, and they do pick up the first down to reset those chains and potentially salvage this drive. Again, we will keep you updated. They're to about the 10-yard line, so they're in really good scoring position here. But you're right, Alex. It's a great point. I mean, you've got a defense that continues to show up and show out, and with 3 games left of the season, I mean, let's hope this Utes offense can thank that defense by scoring touchdowns.
That's the hope. And with just so many questions and so much uncertainty surrounding this Utah team, they need to go out there, like I said, hopefully get bowl eligible, but at the same time, just start planning for the future. Just start looking ahead and start figuring out who this team is going to be next year, what this team is going to be next year, right? There's so many. We talked about it in the preseason about how many seniors and how many veterans were coming back to this team that could obviously lead Utah to big things. It hasn't worked out that way, and now those veterans and those seniors, they're not going to be back next year.
Right. So that's kind of a hard balance to find, right? Because again, going back to wanting these players to get drafted as high as possible, obviously that's a huge selling point for your program, especially in a season like this where things aren't going well and you're not winning football games. You'd like to at least be able to say, hey, last year we had Cole Bishop get drafted in the 2nd round or whatever. This year we had Karenni Reed drafted. We had Lander Barton drafted. We had all these players drafted. We can still put players in the NFL. But at the same time, you do bring up a good point. You want to see what you have in these other young players because this offseason for the Utes is going to be huge. There's going to be a lot of changes. They're going to have a new offensive coordinator. Who knows what Kyle Whittingham's future is going to hold? They may have an entirely new coaching staff as far as Morgan Scalley transitioning to head coach. They would need a new D coordinator and a new offensive coordinator. Isaac Wilson just took a big, big sack. That knocked him back about 10 yards.
Can't take that on 3rd and goal, man.
1 step forward, 2 steps back for Utah's offense on this first drive.
Can't take that on 3rd and goal.
So is it 4th down now?
It is 4th down now.
All right. It's 4th and at least 15. They are settling for a field goal here, so not what you want to see. Again.
Just what we were talking about, man. Just what we were talking about. You have to punch it in this situation.
Credit to Lander Barton for getting the interception.
Absolutely.
At least Utah gets on the board first. They're playing with house money this drive. Okay, it was a free possession off a takeaway, so 3 points is better than 0, I guess is what I'll say.
But Chris, I know we got to go to break here soon, but one of the questions that you have in here is a talking point that I want to hammer on a little bit.
Oh yeah, we've got time.
It's should BYU fans want Utah to win this game?
Yeah. It's interesting because the Big 12 conference race is coming down to the wire. It's BYU and everybody else, right?
But it does seem like we are on a collision course for a BYU-Colorado Big 12 championship game.
So right now, BYU is, of course, 6-0 in the Big 12. Colorado is 5-1, and then you've got 4 teams that are 4-2. That's Arizona State, Iowa State, Kansas State, and West Virginia that are 4-2. So a Colorado win here today would basically guarantee that they're going to see BYU in the Big 12 title game, barring a disaster down the stretch for either of those 2 teams. A loss here would mean that it's anybody's game. So it's basically, if you're a BYU fan, who would you least want to play in the Big 12 title game? And that's an interesting question because you've got teams like Kansas State, who BYU beat already, but at the same time, we know that they're dangerous, and it's really hard to beat a good team twice. So I'd be wary of Kansas State. That's a team that I would not want to see in the Big 12 title game for BYU. Iowa State is a team that lost 2 in a row after looking like the second best team in the conference for most of the season. So we're not really sure what they have there. But then you look at Colorado and, they've got a Heisman favorite. They've got a first-round quarterback in Shedeur Sanders. And, again, they're rolling. They're one of the best teams in this conference. So what would a loss to Utah mean for Colorado? It would mean that, they have a lot of work to make that Big 12 title game. But then as far as when the game is played, it's a big game.
If Utah were to beat Colorado today, Colorado would have to obviously win out the last 2 games and then hope for some help, right? I can't go through all the tiebreakers right now, but they would need a little bit of help from somewhere else to potentially make it into that game. Colorado needs to beat Utah and win their last 2 games for them to say safely they can make it into that Big 12 championship game. And honestly, if I'm BYU, I want Colorado to win this game.
I was thinking about it too, and I think I'm with you because that means if we get a BYU-Colorado Big 12 title game, you want Colorado to have the best record possible. So just in case, if you lose, your loss looks a little better.
Yes.
And you still have a chance at making the college football playoff.
Yep. That's 100%. You're right on. You hit the nail right on the head. You want it to look good, but at the same time, there's so many national articles and national media who have already put out, every time that the CFP rankings drop on Tuesday, they put out their predictions and they put out what they think the bracket's going to look like for them. And nobody's respecting BYU.
No, and that's something that we've seen all season long.
Everybody has Colorado beating BYU in a Big 12 championship game. And I just right now, I just don't see it. I think BYU is a lot better than what the national media has given them.
I mean, 100%. They're one of 4 undefeated teams left.
Absolutely.
In the FBS. So I'm right there with you. It's hard to win 9 straight football games, especially looking at some of the teams that BYU has played. SMU looks like a powerhouse. That Utah rivalry game is always going to be tough. They beat Kansas State. And then, you're right. It's kind of frustrating from our end. I mean, here locally to see BYU continually get disrespected. And then you hear all the chatter about a potential 3-loss SEC team making the college football playoff over 2 Big 12 teams. And it just doesn't make any sense. But this is the disrespect that we're going to continue to see simply because it's not the SEC and it's not the Big Ten.
Right. I think at the end of the day, if you're a BYU fan, you almost want Colorado to win this game. To not only obviously set up that Colorado BYU championship game, but just I think if you have that game, you win or lose, I think it helps your resume. If Colorado goes into this Big 12 Conference Championship game with just the 1 loss, and that potentially will set you up for what we hope is a playoff bid for BYU.
That right there is what Utah needs to do more of in order to win this game. Not to interrupt your thought, Alex, I'm sure that BYU fans will have no problem cheering against Utah today. But that's another one of my keys to the game for Utah to win this thing is to get sacks. Utah just got a big sack there on 2nd down. Colorado has one of the worst offensive lines in the country as far as sacks allowed, but a lot of that is on Shedeur Sanders, as we see right there, holding on to the ball too long and just creating bad situations for himself.
Oh, almost threw another interception there. Yes, this O-line, we had a lot of questions about this O-line coming into this season. They have improved, I will say. They have looked better at times, but there's still moments where they're giving up easy plays and easy sacks. And I think Utah, who has sometimes struggled to get to the quarterback and make those sacks, I think today's a good opportunity for Utah to get some sacks and get some confidence going. Sorry
to interrupt you for a sec, but that's one thing that's been kind of frustrating for Utah is they've done a good job at getting into the backfield and getting pressure.
Yep.
They just have not been able to convert those into actual sacks. So we'll see if they can do that today. Colorado with the big penalty on 3rd down that's going to force a 4th down. Utah's going to decline the penalty. We've got to get to break. We will keep you updated on this game throughout the show. Very excited to have this game on during the Saturday show. But up next, Alex, let's talk some Utah Jazz. You've got the Jazz sweater on, and they looked good the other night, so I can't wait to talk about them. This is the Saturday show, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. It's the Saturday show, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. I'm Christian Esparza, Alex Napoles with me. Shout out to Parker producing. We've got him running laps around the Triad Center, running back and forth between producing our show and cutting highlights for Utah at Colorado. Utah allowed the touchdown on 4th down. Alex, the Utes got Colorado into a 3rd and 23. Then Colorado had a 19-yard pickup to make it 4th and 5, and Shedeur dropped in a 40-yard touchdown pass to Will Shepard right in the bucket. Colorado now leads 7-3. And what do we have here? Is it a fumble?
Yeah, ball came out, but it looks like Bernard was able to fall on top of it.
The Colorado defender had it in his hands.
That's scary.
He had it in his hands.
He did.
But looks like Utah got it. Oh, my gosh. This is close to a disaster. I mean, if Utah's offense is so bad that if they don't score on this drive, the game might be over. And I'm not exaggerating.
And that's the unfortunate part, man. Like, how did we get here?
To Utah's offense being this bad?
How did we get here?
Well, it's easy. You've got a backup quarterback. Well, you got a true freshman that's your backup quarterback. Mistake number 1. Mistake number 2, you're on your backup offensive coordinator. Mistake number 3, you're riddled with season-ending injuries and players leaving the program on offense.
Did we not learn anything from last year?
No. Not a single thing.
Yeah. We're just playing the same tune, man. It's the same song. It's the same record. Just spinning around on that little vinyl needle.
All right, let's talk Jazz. Okay, let's see. Isaac Wilson just missed a throw on a third down.
Sorry, listeners. We're watching the game.
No, let's talk Jazz,
Let's
Alex,
do it.
because they had a big win the other night.
Let's
they beat
do
the
it.
Dallas Mavericks at home, 115-113. It was the Jazz's first home win of the season. Of course, the Mavericks were in the finals last year to represent the West. They haven't been great this year, but it was kind of a weird win for this team that, you know, everybody's expecting to kind of lose as many games as possible. But how about 2 years in a row? Seems like they've nailed a rookie in the draft that is able to contribute immediately. And so far through this year, Kyle Filipowski is that guy. And he's been able to come in, and he looks like he belongs. And there you go. Utah punted it away. Colorado returning the punt for a touchdown. This thing's over. Yeah, Parker's saying shut it down. It's over. There's no way Utah comes back from this. They look dead in the water already.
Yep. Through the first quarter, man, this is probably worst case scenario, right? You start off with the interception, and it looks good. And you're like, hey, you might have to take an early lead here. And then They go down, they score the touchdown, and then you give up the punt return for a TD. Which, by the way, back-to-back returns for touchdowns against Utah.
2 weeks in a row.
2 weeks in a row, yes.
Well, last week was a kickoff.
Yep.
But this week is a punt. Either way, bad news for Utah's special teams. Anyways, let's go Jazz.
Yep, let's get back to the Jazz.
Before we get too sad about this this Utah game. Kyle Filipowski, looking really good,
yes.
Alex. I mean, shooting-wise, 41% from three, 57% from the floor. But what he does even better is he just knows where to distribute the ball, whether it's kind of taking a rebound off the glass and pushing the ball up the floor in transition, or maybe being part of a set play on offense and knowing how to make a quick decision with the pass and not, you know, holding onto the ball and taking time to survey the floor and whatever. He knows how to keep the ball in rhythm, get it out fast, and basically put it into position to lead to a bucket. And he's really, really been playable and versatile for this Jazz team.
Right.
And that's the best part is, I mean, we saw him get some minutes in a kind of reserve role. And then Walker Kessler goes out with an injury, and that opens up some more playing time for Filipowski, and he's able to fit within a lot of different lineups for this Jazz team. So I think that's very encouraging that he's basically showing from right away Kyle Filipowski's able to be a plug-and-play player. And I don't know if he's ever going to have the highest ceiling, but I mean, his floor looks to be pretty high right off the bat, which is all you can ask for from a second-round pick.
Absolutely. And first, I want to start off by saying good on the Jazz for kind of taking advantage of this Dallas team who came into this one struggling a little bit, right?
Yeah.
This is a Mavericks team who obviously was in the NBA Finals last year. This season, off to a good start, but they're kind of in a little bit of a tailspin right now, right?
4-game losing streak.
4-game losing streak. Good on the Jazz to take advantage of that and get a win at home and avoid that worst start in franchise history at home.
Yeah.
That first, good for confidence. Good to not lose. To go off of what you said, yes, Filipowski looks like he's been good. He's been good so far for the Jazz. Very versatile. I've liked what I've seen from him, and you know, we heard it during the draft and a little bit after the draft is how lucky, I wouldn't say lucky, but it was good for the Jazz to pick him up second round, right? They didn't think he would fall that far, but he did, and so they took advantage of the opportunity. And so far, it looks like it was a good move. It was a good pickup for Utah. Really liked what I've seen from the rookie so far.
Yeah, I mean, that's, again, second-round pick. Take a shot at the kid who went to Duke, right? And defensively, he's not the best. He's still got a lot of room to grow. I don't know if he's ever going to be the type of shot blocker type big that Walker Kessler is, but he at least shows a willingness to be in the right position and keep his feet moving. And, you know, that's better effort than what we saw Luka Doncic do the other night. So, you know, that's a step in the right direction. My question for you is another player has been really shining for the Jazz so far, and that's John Collins Is he too good? Is he playing too good for the Jazz right now? Because they don't beat Dallas without John Collins. If you're a tanker, are you worried about how well he's playing?
Yes and no.
Okay.
Last year, I don't know if you remember this, Christian, but there was a lot of criticisms from the fans about John Collins' play, right? He was a good player at the Hawks, kind of not so great his last season with them, gets traded to the Jazz, and I think a lot of people expected a lot of big things and good things from John Collins. Maybe underperformed last season.
Yeah.
Maybe underperformed a little bit to start this season too, but since he's taken off and he's looked a lot better, I think this Jazz team has looked better with him.
Yeah, and it's kind of an interesting deal as to why he's taken a step forward. The thought is kind of that he's now coming off the bench, right, with Walker Kessler, the starting center, and I know Walker's missed 2 games because of a bruised hip, but John Collins was kind of, I don't want to say demoted to a bench role, but they moved him to the bench. And so whether maybe he's playing with a chip on his shoulder, maybe he's a little frustrated, or maybe it's just a better matchup for him going against other teams' backup centers. Regardless, he's been playing really well. And I would be surprised if the Jazz don't trade him by the deadline, simply because of how well he's been playing again. They've won 3 of their last 6 games. And if this is a team who, again, you hear youth movement, yada, 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 but at the end of the day, I'm sure they don't want to win more than 25 games. John Collins is playing probably too good for that to happen. So if the Jazz really want to focus on securing a high draft pick, they might have to make another trade deadline move for the 3rd year in a row.
And yes, I think if there is a market, and I think if teams are willing to put up a good package for John Collins, that's something you should definitely consider.
Right. Which all along was kind of the goal when you traded for him in the first place.
Yeah, but like we said, last year he underperformed.
Right.
I don't think a lot of teams are necessarily wanting to take that gamble on Collins, but if he continues playing the way that he is now, that could be a different conversation come February. And it could be how much can we get for John Collins, and if it's a good enough deal, if it's a good enough move for the Jazz, I don't see why you can't take it.
Right. Especially because, I mean, they're nowhere near contending. So if you can flip Collins for a young player and a decent draft pick, a late first or early second, go do it.
They got him through a second rounder and Rudy Gay, right?
A bag of chips and a ham sandwich.
Yeah, so if you're able to flip him and get something good back, like, hey, why not, man?
That's an amazing deal. And again, that was kind of the plan the whole time, I feel like. It's maintaining flexibility. It's either you have this veteran that you can flip for picks and or players, or you have this guy that is a proven vet and can contribute to winning basketball if you're able to make that flip, that switch as a roster. So far, the Jazz haven't been able to make other moves to turn themselves into contenders, so now they're kind of just going to be developing their youth and flipping their vets for more assets.
And it like I said, if there's a market for Collins and if there's a good enough offer, as we get closer to the trade deadline here in a couple of months, I don't see why you don't take the opportunity to add some more to your war chest, right? We talk about the chest that the Jazz have, and it's already a pretty big, sizable chest. So might as well, if there is a market, and if you are 100% full in on the youth movement and on, they're never going to come out and say, "Oh, we're tanking." But if you're in on the tanking, I could see them doing it.
Jazz at the Kings tonight, 8 p.m. tip-off, 7 p.m. pregame here on the Zone. Walker Kessler continues to remain out on the injury report. Lauri Markkanen is day today, so we are going to see more of John Collins and Kyle Filipowski tonight. We'll see how they look for the Jazz. Did you see the Kings City uniforms? Obviously, there was a big deal that the Jazz released their purple City Edition uniforms. Have you seen the Kings?
I have not.
Okay, so they
I'm gonna have to pull
debuted.
this up.
You got to Google it. They debuted their City Edition uniforms as well as a new mascot, and it's kind of creepy.
I saw the mascot.
Did you?
I did see the mascot. And yes, the mascot is
Roy Al is his name. A new mascot inspired by the logo on their shorts of the City Edition jerseys. He basically looks kind of like Superman, except his head is a basketball, and he's wearing a king crown, and he's got blue hair. He's pretty unnerving.
That's
He's pretty creepy.
It is a little creepy, and if I were a kid, I would be a little. I think it's the eyebrow.
He has one normal eyebrow, and then his other eyebrow's stuck in a infinite squiggle. It's like a raised eyebrow.
Yeah.
He is. You know, you'll talk to little kids that are scared of mascots. This is the mascot.
This is what
that
comes to
little kids are
mind.
Scared of.
He is a little haunting, but
Yeah.
it does give me a good idea for a Halloween costume next season.
Oh, he's funny looking. That's cool though, I guess. I don't know what their other mascot is going to do while this guy's taking the floor, but
The other one's just a regular lion, right?
yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
We'll see. Anyways, that's enough Jazz talk. Utah punted the ball away again. By the way, Isaac Wilson missed a throw on third down.
And took a sack.
So the Utes had to give the ball back to Colorado. Colorado is driving at about... Oh, no, the Utes got the ball back. They forced a punt. Okay. Looks like 1st and 10 for Utah. So, again, stay tuned. We're going to keep you updated throughout this game. Coming up next, Alex, we've got technical fouls. We both mentioned we want to talk about that Mike Tyson fight last night. So we'll get into that and some more on the other side. This is the Saturday Show 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Technical fouls, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. It's the Saturday Show. Christian Esparza, Alex Napoles. Alex, I will start things off real quick with a question for you. Have you ever heard of the announcer's jinx?
Yes. As someone who's out there doing high school games, yes, I'm fully aware of the announcer jinx.
In case you missed it, in our first segment, we were talking about this Utah-Colorado game. I said that Travis Hunter for Colorado, Heisman favorite, was not going to have much of an impact as a corner because Utah does not throw the ball to their receivers that much. Guess what, folks? Travis Hunter just pulled down an interception, and Colorado's rolling. So I'm sorry. I'll take the blame for that one.
Technical
That
foul.
one's my fault.
Technical foul
on
on
me
Christian.
to start the bet.
Oh, no.
All right. Okay, that's out of the way. So, yeah, Colorado's got the ball back off the Travis Hunter interception. Let's see what they do if Utah's defense can get another stop. That is enough for that. We're in commercial now, so we can actually talk the show. Another big one, really obvious, Mark Harlan gets a technical foul for basically hijacking the press conference last week after the BYU-Utah game. I'm not going to get too much into it because everybody knows what he said, what he did, but I want it to be known that I'm giving him a technical foul for that.
What constitutes the technical foul for you? Just out of curiosity.
I personally think that it's a bad look for the AD to come out and it's one thing to complain about the game being stolen because of officiating, but in particular for Mark Harlan to say, I was happy to be in the Big 12 conference, but not tonight. This is a conference that basically threw a life raft to Utah after the Pac-12 dissolved. They did not need to invite Utah to this conference, but they did. Utah could have been with Oregon State and Washington State as, you know, the final survivors of the Pac-12, but the Big 12 took a chance on them, and they didn't have to. And based on all the fan behavior about talking about running the Big 12, and they're too good for the Big 12, and they can't wait for the invite from the Big 10, and then your record, and then Mark Harlan coming out and saying that, like it's a really bad look for the Utah fan base as a whole.
Yeah. I don't think you're getting in. Well, I guess we'll see what happens. But I think the biggest thing for me was was him on the kickoff return being on the field yelling at the officials,
right,
and getting the penalty against Utah's sideline. That to me is
of course, again, a bad look.
Is terrible.
It's a bad look all around.
Yeah.
So, and I mean, everybody's talked about it. Like if Utah would have ran that kickoff back for a touchdown, it would have got called back because of the AD. So, Mark Harlan, technical foul. But of course, the big one, we got to talk about Jake Paul and Mike Tyson. The entire world, except for Parker, seemed to be watching last night. Parker is snoozing in the studio. Did you watch it?
No.
Okay, so I'm the only one who did.
I didn't watch that.
All right. I mean, I got to do a technical foul. It was just, I don't know. It wasn't any different than what people were expecting, right? It was a 56-year-old guy fighting a 27-year-old guy.
Well, that's the thing is, people did have expectations for this.
Right. I think everybody got caught up in the nostalgia of what Mike Tyson was 30 years ago. That's a really, really long time. And I know that everybody hates Jake Paul and everybody was hoping that Mike Tyson would be able to do something. But if you take a step back and really think about it, it's pretty ridiculous to expect Mike Tyson to beat Jake Paul in a boxing match, considering the circumstances. Say what you want about Jake Paul being a fake boxer, not fighting anybody. I agree with all of that, but he physically is still in a better place than Mike Tyson is.
Yes, that as it should be.
Right. You can't, I mean, Jake Paul has been doing this boxing thing, I'm doing air quotes, boxing thing for several years now.
Sure.
So it's not like Mike Tyson is just in a street fight with some random guy outside of a bar.
Right.
This is, I mean, I'm talking about Jake Paul right now. He has somewhat boxing experience.
Yes.
Multiple years of that.
Yeah.
Mike Tyson can barely walk. I mean, he was wearing a knee brace last night. There were a couple times where it looked like he was going to fall over because his legs were unstable. Mike Tyson landed, I think it was 18 punches throughout the whole fight.
Yes.
8 rounds.
I think there's a lot of technical fouls to dish out on this whole thing.
Right.
Jake Paul is a walking
technical foul. I agree with that, Parker.
Yes. There's multiple technical fouls to give here. First of all, the people who were disappointed with the fight, I didn't watch it because I knew what it was.
Right.
It's a cash grab for both of these guys.
Yeah.
Mike Tyson is 58. I don't know I don't know why people had high expectations. I get that there was so much hype around it. I get that the media was like, "Oh, Mike Tyson's back," but he's 58.
Yeah.
I don't know what you expected, and people online complaining about it and it's like, what more did you want?
I like when people are saying that it's rigged because Mike Tyson lost.
Yeah. It's not rigged. He's 58. When's the last time he boxed, If Mike Tyson is really that down bad for some retirement money, go make The Hangover 4.
Well, and he's not, is the thing. I mean, he does so many podcast and media appearances, unless he has a severe gambling addiction or whatever. I can't imagine that he's running out of money.
No, I don't know.
I don't know what this was. I'm totally with you.
My next technical foul goes to Netflix.
Yeah.
Netflix is the worst. And now you have live events and live productions going on, but their servers can't handle the traffic. wasn't going to watch it, but then I was like, you know what? I'm not doing anything. I don't have anything better to do. So I tried to turn it on. I couldn't even get in.
Yeah. Well, right as the fight started, Netflix crashed.
Mm-hmm.
It's to be expected. I mean, again, it seemed like the entire Twitter world was watching the fight. So Netflix, they had never done something like this before as far as live streaming a sporting event. And yeah, it didn't go well. They had quality issues throughout the night, even on the undercard fights. And then hopefully they can get this stuff figured out because they're planning to do an NFL game in the playoffs.
Based on what we saw last night, I'm not confident in their abilities at this time.
No, technical foul to Netflix.
And my last technical foul goes to the fans in the stadium. Did you see how many brawls broke out in the crowd?
I did.
During, before, and after the fight?
I did.
Why? What are we doing? What are we doing? Why are we fighting in the stands?
80,000 people at Jerry World. I will give them credit, though, because they were all booing Jake Paul, and I thought that was cool.
There you go.
The entire stadium was, multiple times, booing Jake Paul.
Just this whole thing to me is a technical foul.
Yeah, and that's what you're going to get. Again, Parker said it best. Jake Paul is a walking technical foul. All of these fights that he continues to put together, credit to him for making money, but it's not boxing. Parker says no credit to Jake Paul for this. Again, and this is a point that I've made, a lot of people make, he's only fought one boxer. It was Tommy Fury, and he lost to Tommy Fury. The only people that Jake Paul can beat in a boxing match are 39 or plus. And I don't think any of them were even boxers besides Mike Tyson. He'd beat a retired MMA fighter, a retired NBA player. Yeah.
Technical foul. Again, to the whole thing.
All right. Not much has happened in this Utah-Colorado game since we last updated you. It's 14-3. Colorado leads. Utah has the ball right now around midfield. It is 3rd and 8. We'll see how this drive goes for the Utes. 13 minutes to go in the second quarter. Stay tuned. We will update you throughout the show. But, Alex, we've got to talk about another big game tonight, BYU hosting Kansas. We will get into that in the next segment on the other side of this break. This is the Saturday Show, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. It's the Saturday Show, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Colorado 0 for 3 on 3rd down. Let's see what the Utes do here. See if they can hold Colorado. Again, Shedeur Sanders just loves to run around and hold on to that ball.
He tries to find the play and make the big play. And then here the flag is thrown.
On Zamaya Vaughn.
And it looks like it's going to go against Utah.
My guy Jake Scott, of course, I produce Jake and Ben Monday through Friday. Jake Scott has a good point. He thinks that Shedeur hangs onto the ball so much because he's afraid of throwing picks. Throwing interceptions would, of course, hurt his draft stock. It would be better to take a sack than throw an interception.
I agree. That's a good take.
Could be.
Yeah, I agree. That's a good take.
Could be.
The sacks look better than the INTs for sure on the stat sheet for sure.
Right. But the other problem is, it's not like scouts aren't watching the film,
yes.
Right? So holding on to the football is going to be a big ding, especially because the defensive linemen in the NFL are just so much faster. And, if Shedeur has trouble right now, I can't imagine it's going to be any easier.
Are we going with Shedeur and Travis going 1 and 2 interchangeable in the draft?
No, I don't think so.
You don't buy that stock?
I don't think Shedeur is good enough to go top 5. But I don't know. It's kind of a weak draft offensively. You've got some stars, like Ashton Ginty is really good, but he's a running back. Teams might be kind of weary of taking him really high. I'm not a scout, obviously. I've seen people who do watch draft film kind of talk about Shedeur lacks any elite traits as a quarterback. He doesn't really have any negatives other than maybe holding on to the ball too long and then maybe leadership. You can say what you want, but as far as like his arm strength and his speed and athleticism, he's not really elite in anything, which you typically see the top quarterbacks in any draft class. They have something that they do better than everybody else, and Shedeur just doesn't have that. But he could have a high floor.
I think I'm not sure if I buy the 1 and 2 overall.
No. They'll both be first-round picks, though, for sure.
Yes, they will be first-round picks, and I'll even say that Shedeur is the first quarterback.
Cam Ward might be taken before Shedeur.
I think he'll definitely be 1 or 2 quarterback for sure, though.
Yeah, I think that's pretty certain. We'll see if there's rumors about Dion kind of stepping in and making sure that both of these guys.
He'll privately have conversations with the NFL.
Yeah. Privately. Or
whatever that means.
How about this? Maybe Dion will be the Dallas Cowboys' next head coach, and he will personally select Shedeur Sanders. Top 10. That's my theory.
Cowboys going with the tank?
Dark horse. I mean, not by choice, but they're awful this year, and Dak Prescott is out for the rest of the season with a hamstring injury. Let's talk BYU. We'll talk more of this game later as Colorado just punted away to the Utes. Still 14-3, so the game is not quite over. Utah still has the opportunity. But earlier, Alex, we talked about BYU and their hopes for a Big 12 title game. Everything looking good so far for the Cougs. They are rolling 9-0. They welcome Kansas tonight. Night game in Provo. Interesting matchup because Kansas does not have the best record. They're 3-6, but 5 of those 6 losses were by 4 or less points. So they play in a lot of close games. The Cougars are 3-0 in their one-score games. So it's a dangerous game to play for BYU. But I do like their chances tonight.
The chances for Kansas or for BYU?
No, for BYU,
gotcha.
sorry.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
I'm right there with you. Because, one, it's at home.
Right.
And I don't think I'll ever pick against BYU when they're at Lavell Edwards.
No, especially for the night games.
Especially for the night games. The Vampire Cougs. I like their chances at home. They've been very good at home. That crowd is incredible. Kansas, though, have looked better in the last couple of weeks.
They have. They beat Iowa State.
Which, Iowa State's, they got a good defense, man. They have a good defense, and, you know, Kansas has kind of struggled a little bit on the offensive side of the ball, but for them to be able to walk away with the win against Iowa State, I think that's huge for the confidence of Kansas. I think that's huge for the confidence of Jalen Daniels, and so we'll see what Kansas team shows up to Lavell Edwards tonight.
I think BYU matches up against Kansas. I don't think Iowa State really does. Matches up well. I guess I got to put that word in there. Jalen Daniels has 9 interceptions this year. Previous high in a season was 4. BYU is 6th in the country with 21 takeaways. So their defense is really, really good at forcing turnovers. BYU's pass defense has been pretty good, but Kansas doesn't pass the ball well. What Kansas wants to do is run the ball down your throat. Their offensive line is what does most of the work. They've actually only allowed 8 sacks, which is really good. And BYU only has 13 sacks on the year. So what I'm trying to say is that what Kansas wants to do is throw the ball. And if BYU can keep their foot on the gas the whole game and not let up, don't let this thing even get close, never let, Kansas can't run the ball if they're down 2 scores.
Right.
Never let the Jayhawks get the opportunity to do what they do well. Make them uncomfortable, and that's going to be a relatively easy win for the Cougs if they can do that.
Heard an interesting stat about this Kansas team earlier this week. And I think you kind of have it in here a little bit. They play close games. They have close scores. 5 of the 6 losses, as you mentioned, are 4 points or less. So if you reverse that, and if they would have came out on top on those games, they would be the number 1 team in the Big 12 right now.
They'd be 9-0.
They'd be the number 1 team in the Big 12.
Or tied with BYU as the number 1 team.
Probably tied with BYU.
Right.
Yeah.
But no, it's tough. I mean, sometimes you have teams, and it's weird how it's like a constant thing throughout the season. You'd think a 1-score game would be a 50-50 thing, but it seems like teams are one way or the other as far as how they come out of 1-score games. Again, this season, BYU seems to come out on top. Kansas seems to come out on the losing end. So that does give me some comfort as far as trends continuing. But then there's always, the regressing to the mean that has to happen eventually. So again, if I'm BYU, I don't even want to take the chance of allowing this to be a close game. I want the Cougs to come out fast. I want them to come out strong, and I don't want them to let up in the second half. Like we saw against Baylor. That got really scary. BYU dominated that game early, and Baylor came back and made it a contest in the 3rd and 4th quarter. So I'm worried for BYU's sake that if Kansas does that, if they come back in the second half and get some momentum like that Baylor team did, Kansas is better than Baylor, I think. Kansas has a better quarterback than Baylor, even though he struggled this year in Jalen Daniels. I think based off of their momentum, if it's a close game in the second half, Kansas is going to be dangerous. So again, key to BYU victory, keep your foot on the gas. Do not let up.
Yes.
You want to put up 45 points at least.
They have to play a complete game because, you bring up the Baylor game. They let their foot off the gas on that one a little bit, let Baylor get back into the game. But more so last week, I thought BYU struggled a bit in that first half against Utah.
Yeah, well, Utah made them uncomfortable. Of course, they didn't have Connor Pay. Connor Pay's back this week at center, so that's
Which
a big get
huge,
for the Cougs. But
huge.
It was clear that Utah just wanted to kind of blitz the heck out of Jake Retzloff, and they were sending 6 guys almost every play, it seemed. Whether they were really blitzing that much or that's just a credit to Utah's defensive front, they were in the backfield. And I don't know if Kansas's defensive line has that ability to make Jake Retzloff and the Cougs that uncomfortable, but that's definitely why that offense struggled.
And so in this case, I don't want to see them come out of the gates struggling, right? I want them to come out and play and have a good first half, and I want them to have a good second half and continue to be good at moving the ball, continue to have that dominant defense that we've been excited about all season long, and keep, like you said, keep the pedal to the metal, keep their foot on the gas, and take it to Kansas early, because if you give Kansas any type of hope in this game, any type of confidence, that could come back and bite you later on.
And BYU's their passing defense has been really well. Their rushing defense isn't bad by any means, but they're sort of middle of the pack.
Yes.
And again, Kansas's rushing attack is one of the best in the conference. But BYU has shown, just compared to the Kansas State game, that's what they do well, is rushing the football. And they did put up yards on the ground, but it didn't really affect the outcome of the game. So it's not so much the yardage total, but about, where they come from and letting that affect the scoreboard. So I'm not super worried about that, but again, just don't give them the chance to be comfortable. I don't want them to even take that chance.
Again, just come out of the gates, playing your game. Don't give them any type of hope or any type of confidence. I think there was a lot of hype around this Kansas team coming into the season, right? There was. Jalen Daniels had an incredible year last year. It does seem like he's taken a step back and regressed a little bit this year, but he's still dangerous, and he still can do some really good things. You got to contain Jalen Daniels on that offense to the best of your ability, and I think that's probably my key for this BYU game, for BYU to win this game.
Not letting Jalen Daniels get going.
Exactly. You contain Jalen Daniels and take away that run game, and I think you'll be fine.
These two teams met last year. It was BYU's first game in the Big 12. So that was huge. And Kansas won 38-27. Jalen Daniels, 14 of 19 for 130 yards, but 3 touchdowns. And Kansas ran for 221 yards on 37 carries in that game, but no touchdowns on the ground. That's a little interesting. But that was BYU's kind of welcome to the Big 12 moment. And it was a relatively close game. It's not like BYU got blown out by any means. But I think that's another underrated aspect as far as we've heard some sound throughout the week that some of these BYU players are playing with a chip on their shoulder. This is kind of a get-back game for the Cougars after last year's loss. Now the Cougars can come back and say, hey, we're atop this conference right now. We know what to expect from the Big 12. We know what to expect from you. You're nothing new to us anymore. You can't scare us. Plus, we're playing at our house.
And I think the biggest thing and the biggest takeaway from me last year in that game against Kansas, last season, was on BYU's first drive, it's a fumble return for a touchdown. It's the turnover. And then to start the second half, BYU throws in a pick six. And so that's what stands out to me from this last game. And I know we had this conversation earlier. As long as Retzlaff and this offense can protect the ball and continue to avoid turnovers, I thought they've been a lot better in recent weeks at holding the ball and making sure they don't turn over that ball. So I think that's going to be huge again tonight. You have to make sure that you secure the ball and make sure you win that turnover battle,
Right.
And not give Kansas any of these opportunities. You gave, I know it wasn't Retzlaff last season, it was still Slovis, but you gave him the fumble early in the game, and then you give him the interception to start the second half. That's huge momentum that goes in Kansas' side, and I think that obviously plays a big factor into that loss last season. So secure the ball, win the turnover battle, and again, I think you have a big shot to get past this Kansas team.
Speaking of turnover battle, Shedeur Sanders just fumbled. Couldn't handle the shotgun snap. It looked like it just kind of fell out of his hands. Guess what, Alex? Utah's defense recovers that. Oh, yeah, he called for the shotgun snap and kind of clamped his hands down before he had the ball in it. Bounced off his fingertips.
Recovered by Junior Tafuna.
Was that Junior?
That was Junior.
Got in there, got the ball, giving Utah's offense a short field again. Let's see if the Utes can capitalize. It is still 14-3 Colorado. But you're right. As much as we talk about BYU wanting to force takeaways against Kansas, protecting that ball is always key. Another thing I want to point to last year's game, BYU only had 9 rushing yards. Of course, Keaton Slovis is credited with 5 carries for -24. That's kind of sacks taken away there. But LJ Martin had 11 carries for 28 yards. Deion Smith had 4 carries for 10 yards.
It's kind of crazy to think that, this one, LJ Martin, I think, has taken a big step forward. He has looked incredible so far this year for the Cougars. But it's kind of crazy to think that last year they were held to just those 9 yards.
Well, their rushing attack was awful last year, so it's a huge testament to Coach Woods and that offensive line that have come in and kind of revitalized that ground game for the Cougs. And they did kind of get off to a slow start this season, but, I mean, the last couple weeks especially, they have been on one. So you're right. I mean, different quarterback under center compared to last year for BYU. And Retzlaff definitely looks a lot better than Keaton Slovis did last year. So there are a lot of things that point to BYU should be able to take care of this one pretty comfortably as long as they don't let the Jayhawks get comfortable.
I will say that, obviously this is the third to last game. If BYU is able to beat Kansas and walks away with the win against Kansas tonight, I think I would be pretty comfortable saying that BYU will be playing in Arlington for the Big 12 championship. I know there's still what ifs and there's still possibilities, but with everybody else being at 2 losses except Colorado, BYU kind of has that ticket punched with a win tonight.
Yeah, I would agree.
It feels like it's in the bag for them, and they just have to continue doing what they're doing.
Looking for that 10th win on the season, that would be something. 9-0 is special, but you get that 10th win, and it's like, okay, getting a double-digit wins is always special, but 10 straight wins that's awesome. It's at home.
Does BYU finish this season with no losses?
It's going to take a lot. It honestly is, and they're going to be favorites in their last 3 games.
Absolutely.
And I am confident in them, but it's so hard to go undefeated, and I wouldn't be shocked if they lost the game. But if I were to pick the winner of their final 3 games, I'd go with BYU in every single one based off the matchups. To remind you, they've got Kansas tonight, at Arizona State next week, and then at home versus Houston. Arizona State could be a tricky one.
I was about to say, I don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves, but that Arizona State game, that will be fun.
That
one's going to be fun considering where Arizona State is on the standings too.
Utah struggled at Arizona State, and I was just going to say Utah finished that drive off with a field goal after forcing the fumble recovery there. So that's 2 takeaways for Utah. That's only turned into 6 points. Again, Alex, Utes can't win this game with only field goals. 14-6, Colorado.
Yeah, again, just the inability to move the ball, man. The offense right now can't move the ball. And the defense, again, gives you this short field, and it looks like you have an opportunity to put 7 in, but Utah just can't seem to figure out how to punch it into the end zone.
Do you have a score prediction for BYU Kansas?
I'm going to go
I think it's going to be high scoring.
Yes, I was just about to say, I think it will be high scoring. And I think, again, BYU have, I'm going to go 34 to 28 BYU.
I like that.
Yeah.
I'd be surprised if Kansas puts up that many. I'll say 24.
Okay.
I'll say 36-24
Okay.
BYU. Another interesting point too, just while we're talking about this game, do you think coming off of a rivalry week game last week is going to impact BYU at all, positively or negatively?
I think it'll impact them positively.
Because they came out on top.
If Utah was able to steal a win from BYU, maybe we're having a different conversation. But I think
some momentum.
Yeah, exactly. But I think the fact that they came into Rice Eccles and they won in the fashion that they did, right? The game was over.
Yeah.
It seemed Reslav was down on the 1 yard line, but for them to come back, and Chase Roberts makes a big catch to set up Will Ferrin for the game-winning field goal. To win that game in that fashion with that emotion, plus you have the fans out at 3 a.m. crowd surfing with Will Ferrin,
going crazy.
Like, yeah, it's going to be a positive impact due to the fact that it ended that way.
Yeah. We'll see. Emotional games can be really hard for a team to overcome, whether it was a win or a loss. So we will see. Man, Shedeur is just running around, and he finds a receiver for the first down. That is phenomenal.
Utah's got to get to Shedeur, man.
They do. They have not really been able to. They
have not been able to yet, and if they want to keep this game close, they got to get to Shedeur. You can't allow him to just stand in the pocket like that for that much time, man.
All right, we got to take another quick break. Coming up on the other side, we'll hit 5 minutes of. We'll talk Utah Hockey Club. We'll talk NFL and a little bit more. Stay with us. This is the Saturday Show, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Welcome back. It's the Saturday Show, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Christian Esparza, Alex Napoles. It's time for 5 minutes of Alex. We've got a little bit of time to talk about a lot of different things. I want to start off with this. I don't know if you saw this yesterday. Did you see Shams' tweet? New NBA insider for ESPN?
Which one?
The NBA is in serious discussions on a new 4-team tournament format for the 2025 All-Star Game. Oh. What do you think about that?
I kind of like it.
Do you?
Actually. Only because I feel like in recent years, the All-Star Game has kind of lost a little bit of its flair and a little bit of its spark. So I'm open to trying something new for it to hopefully get some more attention on it. Because I do like honoring the guys who should be honored, right? There's guys who have incredible seasons who should be in the All-Star, who should play the All-Star, and be recognized in that way. However, like I said, it's just kind of lost its glam over the last couple years.
New 4-team tournament for the 2025 All-Star Game would consist of 3 teams of 8 All-Stars each and the winner of the Rising Stars game. Again, this is being discussed. Nothing is official. And I'm with you. I'm all for trying something new because it has not been working recently. As far as this, I don't think I'm the biggest fan because why would this make the players care more? And that's the biggest issue, right? Is the players don't care about playing in the All-Star Game. So why would changing it to a tournament make them play harder? Are they going to win something? Are they going to, even the NBA Cup, like who cares?
Yeah.
It's cool. The players do get a $500,000 bonus if they win, but it's not like at the end of the day, it doesn't actually matter, right? So I don't know. There's got to be some sort of benefit to make these players want to play. Otherwise, I don't care what you change. It's not going to make the product better.
Right. And that's something that they need to figure out that's something they just need to figure out with the All-Star Game. Like something to make the stakes a little bit more interesting. Put something on the line that's gonna incentivize the guys and the players to put a little bit more care into these games.
Well, and if you're turning this thing into a tournament, then you're going to have 4 games that nobody cares about as opposed to just one, and you're going to make it that much longer of a weekend.
Yeah.
So we'll see. It's an interesting thought. Obviously, there's still a lot of details that we don't know, but pretty big breaking news there from Shams yesterday that the NBA is discussing this.
Like I said, I'm all for trying something new. And hopefully having the ability to again just attract more interest to it, not only from the fan perspective but also from a player perspective.
Yeah, they're kind of getting desperate. This All-Star game has been really bad the last few years.
Yes.
So they're desperate to make a change.
And I think the same thing can be said for the Pro Bowl.
Yeah, all of these.
Yeah.
Same thing. Let's talk hockey club for a second. They lost to the Vegas Golden Knights last night. It really sucked, actually, because they were tied 2-2. Vegas scored with a minute and a half left. They went up 3-2, and then they scored again with 30 seconds left to put the nail in the coffin. But it was frustrating seeing Utah compete with these guys. I mean, one of the best teams in the NHL. This is a team, mind you, they lost to them in overtime a couple weeks ago or last week. And then they come to Salt Lake City, and the Utah Hockey Club is able to compete with this team, and then they allow 2 goals in the final 2 minutes of the game. And it's like, man, they're so close to putting it together. But so far throughout this season, they've really only had 1 or 2 games where they have a complete performance as far as offense and defense showing up on the same night. As far as last night, they got the 2 goals, and then they just struggled to score after that.
Yeah, and I think the biggest takeaway for me is from this one, from the hockey club, is you're up 2-0, and it seems like you're playing really good. You're playing really well, and then you just kind of I don't know if collapse in this case is necessarily the right word, but you do kind of collapse a little bit in that third period, and allow that comeback from the Golden Knights, and this isn't the first time we've seen a third period not go the way of the Utah Hockey Club, right? We look back at that. Was it the Sharks where they were up and then the Sharks
allowed the flurry of goals late?
Yeah, so I mean, I want to see this hockey club do better at holding those leads and not allowing yourself to kind of collapse a little bit in that third period.
I apologize because I really am spacing who said this last night, but there was a player on this team that said sometimes they kind of just give too much respect to the opponent, or they're like in awe, like, oh my gosh, it's the Vegas Golden Knights. Like, these guys are one of the best teams in the NHL, and we're on the ice with them. And they kind of let that get to their heads, and that affects them. So I think it's maybe just a confidence thing, is they need to realize, like, hey, we're all in the same league. Okay, I know these guys are good. They won the cup a couple of years ago, but, I mean, we're all in the NHL. We all deserve to be here, and we have the ability. Again, like we saw last night, like, they were up on these guys. You just got to put it away. Colorado going up 21-6. Will Shepherd caught his second touchdown of the game. Not looking good for the Utes.
Not looking good.
Not looking good. Alex, let's talk NFL really quickly. Got some fun games tomorrow. Bills-Chiefs, obviously the big one. The Chiefs got away with one last week. They blocked the game-winning field goal against the Broncos. Oh, I forget Parker's a Chiefs fan.
He's over in the studio celebrating.
Come on. No, this is going to be a fun game, though.
Yes.
Dalton Kincaid, former Ute, is out. He will not be playing in this one, but
Amari Cooper looks to be back.
Amari Cooper will be back. He missed the last couple of weeks. This game is always fun when these two teams meet, so we'll see what happens there. Are there any other games that you're keeping an eye on?
Obviously, that is the big one of the week. As far as other games go, I'm looking at the Packers-Bears. That one is always fun. I know the Bears kind of struggling at the moment, right?
New offensive coordinator. We'll see if that makes a change or not.
But those ones are always fun. It's the rivalry game.
Yeah, they hate each other.
They do not like each other, and so that one always delivers. There's always something fun that's going on there. I know last year the Packers kind of blew out the Bears, but this is a different Bears team. And so we'll see kind of how that one goes. 49ers Seahawks, also another divisional game that I'm looking forward to watching tomorrow. And then, of course, the Monday night game, Texas Cowboys. That one will be a fun one to see kind of how the Texans bounce back. They've struggled with injuries. Nico Collins should be back.
Yeah.
And I think C.J. Stroud has struggled without his receivers. And so we'll see if the Texans are able to bounce back.
I also want to mention the Ravens at the Steelers. That's an 11 a.m. game. Again, AFC North rivalry matchup. And you know what, Alex? Lamar and the Ravens have historically struggled against Pittsburgh, and Pittsburgh is rolling with Russell Wilson under center. So this could be a really fun game. It's a real brutal kind of smash mouth type of game. It's always going to be real physical. And then Bengals at the Chargers, Sunday Night Football. I think that's a fun matchup. Two of the best quarterbacks from that draft class in Joe Burrow and Justin Herbert. And the Chargers have really figured their stuff out the last, I'd say, month or so. And the Bengals have had good performances, but they haven't been able to translate that into wins. So I think that's going to be another fun one. I love Justin Herbert.
Justin Herbert has looked a lot better under Harbaugh. Last year, I think there was a lot of people questioning if he had what it takes to be the franchise quarterback, to be the guy for the Chargers.
Yeah.
But I think this year he's looked a lot better. The Bengals, I don't know. I don't know what to make of the Bengals because
Jamar Chase had one of the most impressive performances you'll ever see last week, and they still weren't able to get it done.
Exactly. The offense, I think, is more than pulling their weight. I think defensively this team needs to figure things out.
They just can't get stops when they need it. And it's interesting because Trey Hendrickson, I think, leads the NFL in sacks. So it's not like they can't get pressure on the quarterback. It's just they cannot get stops when it's needed. So I think, I don't know. We'll see how that goes. Again, I will always defend Justin Herbert. I could argue with the all segment about if Justin Herbert looked good last year or not. But anyways, what do you think of the Lions? 5 interceptions last week for Jared Goff, and they were able to get the win against those Houston Texans that you were talking about earlier. Do you think they're legit?
Well, I can't remember the last time a team threw 5 interceptions and walked away with the win. So, I mean, massive credit to the Lions for being able to pull that off. I do think, from what I've seen so far, I think the Lions are legit. I think they do have an opportunity to make a deep playoff run, which is kind of crazy to say and to think about after what the Lions have been most of our childhood. Right? They weren't a good football team. They were never a good football team. Now they are.
Yeah.
And so I'm extremely happy for the people at Detroit and for the Lions fans to be able to have a team who can potentially contend for something this season. I do think that they are legit. Goff, I think, just needs to clean it up a little bit.
I'll pose you with a question that I got asked yesterday. Who's your MVP so far this season? We're a little more than midway through.
Ooh, that's a tough one.
I was asked specifically if Saquon Barkley would be MVP this year. He had an impressive performance Thursday night, almost 200 yards from scrimmage. My answer was that if Christian McCaffrey did not win MVP last year, I don't think a running back is going to win it anytime soon. I don't think that Saquon, I mean, he's had some big performances, but even people are already forgetting what Christian McCaffrey did last year. That was one of the most impressive seasons I've ever seen, and they gave it to Lamar Jackson. And Lamar, by the way, is playing even better this year than he was last year. So I think if the season were to end after this week, Lamar would repeat as MVP, and Offensive Player of the Year would either be Saquon or maybe Jamar Chase.
I'm right there with you. Now, what I've been kind of looking through this and looking at some of the numbers, and the only one that really, I am with you. I do think that a quarterback will ultimately win the MVP. I think right now the one that stands out the most to me is Lamar Jackson, and probably, I think Lamar Jackson. I'm right there with you. He's going to right now the MVP for me is the repeat of Jackson.
Yeah, or, I mean, the Chiefs are undefeated, and I know Patrick Mahomes has not been very impressive this year, But, an undefeated team is always going to get a lot of run when it comes to the awards races, especially when it's Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs. First half has come to a close as Utah hits a field goal as time expires. That's Cole Becker's third field goal of the game. It was a 47-yarder. They trail. Was it 21-9?
21-9 as they head to the break.
21-9 at the half. We've got to take a break. We'll wrap this show up on the other side. And we will continue to kind of talk about what's happened, what's transpired through this Utah game in the first half. And then, of course, stay tuned. We're going to have the Utah post-game show as soon as the first half goes final. But I don't know, Alex. Before we hit the break, let's get some quick thoughts on this first half. I'd rather do it now than that last segment.
It's the same story, man. We're seeing the Utes struggle to move the ball. Good that I guess good that they've gotten points. They have the nine off the field goals, but you get that interception early, man. You set up your offense in fantastic field position, and you can't put it into the end zone. You get the fumble to Funa, and again, can't put it in the end zone. Utah really needs to figure out, one, how to get touchdowns. Their inability to not be able to get touchdowns has really impacted them here in the early goings against this Colorado side, and the inability to move the ball.
Simple. Not much to say. It's the same story we've seen. All right, halftime. We'll wrap the show up next. This is the Saturday Show, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. It is the Saturday Show, wrapping this thing up. 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. I'm Christian Esparza, Alex Napoles with me. We are in the middle of a game. Utah trails Colorado at the half, 21-9. Do you think the Utes can put it together in quarter number 3, Alex?
I hope so, but with what I've seen so far from this first half, it doesn't seem there's not much that really inspires confidence in this Utah team at the moment. Obviously, I hope I'm wrong. I hope they can come out, make it more competitive in that second half. But there's been a couple of passes where, there's one that sticks out of my mind in that second quarter where it looked like King, was wide open. There was nobody around him, and Wilson just kind of overthrew his target.
Isaac Wilson, 8 of 20 in the first half, 62 yards, 1 interception, so below 50% completion percentage.
8 of 20.
Did you realize it was that bad?
Wow. No, I didn't realize it was that.
Wish you could have seen Alex's face just now. Turned to a ghost for a second. Do you think that we're going to see Luke Batari in the second half? There were questions the last couple of days. Isaac Wilson has apparently been sick. It was unknown if he was going to play today. He started the first half for Utah. Do you think we will see Luke Batari lead the Utes to victory for the second straight year against Colorado?
And when you put it like that,
those are two different questions.
Yes.
Yeah.
When you put it like that, no.
But do you think we'll see Batari at all?
It might be a possibility, man. Their 8 for 20 isn't good. 62 yards isn't good. Utah's inability to do really much on offense. They're under 90 yards here at the halftime break on offensive yards.
2 short fields, and they have only turned that into 6 points.
That's concerning. And so, again, if you're Kyle Whittingham and you want to spark and you just need something positive, something to hang your hat on, we could potentially see Luke Batari coming into this one.
We saw it against Houston, looking for a spark on offense.
But at the same time, like I said, at what point does this play time for Isaac become more of a detriment to his development more than anything?
Yeah, I wonder how much this game will affect his decision for his future. And I don't know anything. I'm just speculating, but we will see there. I just want to run through the rest of our schedule here on the Zone. Today, of course, we're going to have Utah post-game on the 97.5 signal. Once this game goes, final second half coming up soon. Coming up right at 12, though, right after this, we're going to have Utah State versus Hawaii. We're going to have the pregame show with Scotty G and Kevin White coming up right after this. Later tonight, we're going to have the Jazz at the Sacramento Kings, 8 p.m. tip-off, 7 p.m. pregame. That's going to be on 97.5. And then we're going to have the Cougar pregame show with Alex Carey and Jake Hatch at 7 as we get ready for that 8:15 kickoff tonight against Kansas.
Good slate.
Good slate.
We have a good slate. A lot of good things happening. Hopefully the Jazz can continue the steam, pick up some wins, and we'll see how the Cougars do tonight.
All right. Thanks for making us part of your Saturday. Stay tuned for the best sports coverage. This has been the Saturday Show, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.